name is Milo Simpson. I'm Henry Simpson's oldest son, and we've put together this presentation to kind of cover the history, location of Buena Vista Estates and some of the issues with fires, EPA, and the Navy. So our agenda is overview of the project, lay of the land, the fires that routinely come through, the fire breaks, and working with forestry and agriculture, the old fire breaks that used to exist on Naval Magazine. We want to address the oil sheen issue in Ghost Cave and talk about the President's new executive order on common sense fire prevention and the Navy's in-ramp process and their responsibilities and goal with respect to wildfire management on their property. And lastly, Guam's EPA primacy, its ability to administer and kind of handle permitting and inspections of this type of project. Okay, so starting off, this is a map of the property before Henry did anything. So there you got Naval Magazine down here. This is the front gate to Naval Magazine. If you follow my mouse cursor, this is Cross Island Road. Continues along here. And so the area is here that my mouse is circling. That's roughly the area of the Buena Vista development. And you'll notice that even in this picture, there was already a fire. And so this is from 2000. We estimate based upon construction that we can see, this was 2004, 2006 time period. And so fires, they come from Naval Magazine. You can see it's burnt here and it's burnt here. Naval Magazine goes down to the right, and the wind blows from the bottom right of the screen to the top left. So fires start down there, and they get blown up, and they come up. This is the north side of the Buena Vista Valley, and this is the south side of the Buena Vista Valley. There's also another valley here where they come up, and they would come up, and this is a nice ridge line here, so you can see, and then it would go down, and then Guam Fire Department would have to protect these houses. For additional context, this water tank here was put in 1972, and the road that gets access to the water tank comes down here. It was built in 1972, and it is 20 feet wide, and it was 20 feet wide on paper, so it didn't have it wasn't a proper public access road where we have 50-foot wide for easements and stuff. Okay, next slide. So when fires happened, that was okay, because back in the day, there weren't any houses out here, but there was property out here. So in 1972, this subdivision was laid out on paper, and in 1967, this subdivision was laid out on paper as a tabletop subdivision. So somebody just sat on a table and drew lines, and they made these subdivisions with basically no regard for the lay of the land. So there are public roads on paper that go through swamps and go up cliffs. So they're basically unbuildable. And people have bought these lots back in the day, but they've never been able to use them because they're landlocked. So that's what Henry was able to accomplish with Buena Vista Estates. He was able to acquire this two pieces of property that got bisected by the water tank road, and that allowed him to build a proper 50-foot wide, legally 50-foot wide road from Cross Island Road up to the water tank and around the backside to tie into existing legal roads in these subdivisions as much as possible. Okay, so this is now the Buena Vista phases and a timeline. So phase one construction was 2007, 2008. It involved putting a road up to here and putting some house lots along the way to raise funds. Phase two was finding who owns these lots, and if they've gone through an inheritance and probate, and finding who actually owns these lots and negotiating with them, like, hey, do you want to sell the lot? We'll buy it. If you don't want to sell it, maybe we can work out a deal, something like, you have one of these 1 acre lots, let's cut it in half. You give me a half-acre lot, you keep a half-acre lot for you, and Henry will get you power, water, and a road. And importantly, legal access on a private road that Henry built to get into this subdivision. So uh, that's sort of the development side of the thing, but also you have to do, in situations where the existing roads are not usable, like right here, a lot of these lots got consolidated and then a new public road was created that comes down this ridge line. And by the way, this ridge line, you can see it's already got a trail on it and it goes down to Naval Magazine. This was an old fire road that the Navy had back in the 60s and 70s coming up. Also, there's a paved road in Naval Magazine that connected into this fire road and came all the way up here. Uh, yep, okay. Right, phases. Phase 1, 2007, 2008. Phase 2, 2009. Phase 3 was 2013 to 2014. Similar deal, finding out who owns the lots and getting roads in there. Phase 4 was 2016 to 2017, but it never got past sort of surveying and exploratory work. The roads out here and the terrain was just too steep and too swampy in certain areas to be able to do anything. So no roads, no asphalted roads, no power, no water lines were put in as part of phase 4. Phase 5 is currently just forestry fire breaks and forestry roads and a big red fire truck road. No actual paved road, house lot, profit things have been done for phase 5 yet. Okay, so let's talk about fires and the fire roads. So as I said before, fires start in Naval Magazine, they get blown into the Buena Vista area. In the past couple of years, these fires have occurred roughly every 2 years, 2019, 2022, 2025. 2019 was a big fire. The Navy actually sent out the helicopters with the water bucket to protect people's houses. And so as a resident of the area, you need to prepare. And so that's what Henry did. After the 2019 fire, he started talking to the fire chief locally and got him to come out and look at the property. I'll talk about in a minute. But in 2022, they actually held a fire drill with Guam Fire Department on some of the private fire breaks that Henry's built over time, and had an exercise to make sure that people understood, here's the fire hydrant, here's what the things are. I want to call out this section here. Simpson has been cooperating with the Department of Agriculture under the Stewardship Forestry Program since 2007 and has worked to convert fire-prone savanna grasslands into native forests, because that's how you get fireproof areas, when you get enough tall trees that the swordgrass can't grow, and those end up stopping the fires. Also, estimate here that Henry has planted about 14,000 trees since 2007. And originally in 2007, it was, there's a public road that Henry had to build and, putting good trees along the side. And that 14,000 number comes from adding up all of the batches of saplings that Henry got from from forestry over the years, and sending out people to go plant them. Okay, so we're now looking at the approximate phase 5 area, and this is imagery from 2021. So the property was legally acquired in 2016. However, even before that, the property owners and Henry had an agreement, and both the existing property owners and Henry were happy to have fire breaks put in and for forestry to come out and plant trees and do stuff. So these fire breaks, and this road here, this is a fire break. I'm calling it a fire break because it is a 4-wheel drive trail. You need a 4-wheel drive vehicle to navigate these trails. It is not something that a 2-wheel drive vehicle could navigate. And just other points of interest, this little trail here is an existing trail from the 70s where people would launch hang gliders. This trail around here is an existing road that locals can use to get across the ridge line. So after the 2021 fire, Henry brought the fire chief out and they were talking. And what the fire chief said was, hey, your southern side is good because you've got a fire hydrant down at the end of this road here. So you can provide water and support to this southern side of the valley. But on the northern side, there's no water up here. So if you could get a road to this spot, roughly speaking, and there's no way to get a big fire truck through here, it's very steep. if you can get a road to this that we can drive the big red fire truck down, it can park there, it can cover the top of this, and it can provide water to smaller vehicles. So that's what Henry did. And the construction of this fire road was happening in the middle of 2021. So it wasn't caught on that early 2021 satellite footagery, but now in 2023, which is the next time satellite footagery was available, you can see the fire road having been put in. In middle of 2021, when that fire road was being put in, that's when EPA got interested and came out and did an inspection. And on the front of it over here, it is fairly wide. So I could see how it could be mistaken as a road that Henry was putting in. But towards the back, it turns into one lane. And this is not a road. This is a fire road to be able to get the big red fire truck out to this spot so it can provide coverage. In 2021, when things with EPA started happening, as you can see, no house development, no other lots have been put out here. And the only thing that's happened after EPA got involved was additional mitigations for erosion control on this fire road. In the original 2021 inspection, there were the pictures of big pipes. Those pipes were already for planned erosion control and not for, basically allowing it to cross streams or anything. Okay. Another thing I want to point out is down here in Navy magazine, the Navy had to plant a bunch of trees back in the day as remediation for one of the aircraft carriers damaging a reef on Guam. But this is not they had to do that twice, or they had two different times where they planted trees. You can see here, there were also a bunch of trees, and they were kind of planted in a line, but those trees have been burned a couple times. These guys have survived longer. Okay, so we've talked about the big red fire truck. Now let's see it. So in 2022, as part of the fire drill that was mentioned in the paper, they drove the fire engine, the big red truck, out along that road where parts of it are one lane, up to the top of the hill on that four-wheel drive fire break that's real steep. And it was there to provide coverage and water to smaller vehicles like these. So this is Guam Agriculture Department. They have two of these trucks. The truck has a tank in the back. It holds about 100 gallons. It's got a hose system. It's a dually four-wheel drive, so it can navigate the steep fire break terrain and get in there and stop fires out in the wilderness more than the big red fire truck can. So a drill happened in 2022. Things were good, and a couple months later, the drill went into effect because there was a fire. And as you can see here, the fire came up from Naval Magazine on the right. It's burned the north side valley of the Buena Vista area, and it was stopped along the fire break with help from the big red fire truck up top. Bottom left picture is Guam Fire Department, Guam Agriculture, out there working together, putting out the fire. The bottom right is the gentleman from the fire drill and his truck being used with water from the big red fire truck to put out fires along the fire break. Unfortunately, in 2005, we had another fire and things didn't go so well. It was a 3-day long fire. Again, it came up out of Naval Magazine. It was stopped along the fire break that worked in 2022. So that was Saturday. Sunday, unfortunately, the fire kept smoldering down in Naval Magazine property. And Sunday there wasn't much wind. So the fire grew, just kind of slowly burning through swordgrass in the savanna. But then Monday the wind picked up and it blew the fire up that side of the valley. It burned through all of these trees that the Navy had planted approximately 20 years ago, and about 80% of them are gone. There's footage you'll see of that in further slides. And the fire managed to get through the fire breaks on the southern side. And when it did, it came around and it wiped out all the trees here, including these trees along the fire break that were there for soil control, erosion control, and also to stop fires coming in on the north side entrance. The fire burned all the way up to the water tank road. It took out a bunch of trees here that had been planted by forestry on these terraces, and it's a real shame. All right, so Here's some pictures of the fire. So this is Saturday. This upper picture is roughly where, this picture is taken from where the big red fire truck would sit. It's looking to the east, and that's Cross Island Road. These are private houses along Cross Island Road. This house right here, in the corner of that guy's yard, there's a big red post in the ground, and that is a post marking kind of the corner of Naval Magazine property. Naval Magazine property kind of goes down to the right and then goes out that way there. Guam Fire Department was busy fighting fires along this side, protecting these houses. Also, unfortunately, there was a new fire chief who hadn't been involved in the 2022 fire drill, and so didn't bring the big red fire truck out on the fire road. And so local residents of Buena Vista were out at night putting out the fire along the fire break. But it held. So this is a picture from Sunday morning. It's overcast, but it didn't rain, unfortunately. And so Sunday morning, you can see that the fire was stopped along the fire break that worked in 2022. However, so on Sunday as well, going back to the spot where the big red fire truck is, there's that house with the big red post in it that mounts the boundary. And that property line, Navy's property line, goes approximately where my mouse is traversing. So if you go up above where the mouse cursor is, that's Naval Magazine property. And so out on this mountain here, you can see smoke. And the fire was just out there in the middle of nowhere smoldering, where there was no access or easy way to get at it. And so Sunday continued to smolder. There's footage I'll show later where basically it just burned all of the grassland going down here in uncontrolled fashion, and it was just allowed to burn out until it runs into jungle. Monday, the winds kick up and the fire comes up the south side. The firefighters had been down in there trying to work on that and put it out, but were unsuccessful. They were starting to get smoked out and they got pulled out. And so this is where the fire was able to jump across the fire breaks on the southern side of the Buena Vista area. And then once it was in, it just swept around like in the diagram. So I have some drone footage that we took a couple days after the fire, about a week or so. So you a little bit of kind of green shoots coming out. So there's kind of two fire break trails on the southern side. Both were breached. That little area of green is thicker, older trees that were able to survive. Okay, so as it pans, you can see that the whole south side of the valley was burned all the way up to the road near the water tank. A lot of forestry trees that were planted all got burned. And the really disappointing thing is the set of trees that were grown along that fire break, a whole lot of them got burned. And those trees were there for fire control and erosion control of the fire break. Go to the next slide. Show the what happened to the Navy. Is this going to pan? So this is a similar angle to what we had before. That was that little mountain that had the smoldering fire on it. You can see the fire went all the way down to the jungle there, and it went back further on Naval Mag property, basically up to the jungle, burning kind of backwards. It's going to continue rotating. And you can see that those are the trees that the Navy planted approximately 20 years ago for remediation on the aircraft carrier issue. About 80% of them were burned. And the remaining trees that were on this slope that were part of another remediation, those are basically all gone now. Okay, so now let's kind of talk about the Navy and its boundaries and its old fire breaks. So this is a scan from a map from year 2000, USGS map, and it shows this thing called East Lookout Tower. And Navy property kind of does these two jogs. So this one right here that's probably that one house with the post in it that I was talking about. And then this spot here, we didn't see in any of the footage, it's a bit further away, but they had a 3-story East Lookout Tower that was used for folks watching for fires and for perimeter security for Naval Magazine back in the 60s and 70s. So Naval Magazine had a fire/perimeter road that roughly followed its eastern boundary with Talofofo and Babulau. That is now just unmaintained and grown over and really not passable. They had a fire road going from the East Lookout Tower going west, and it didn't quite follow the property line, but it mostly did. And had this fire road been maintained, some of the fires, this fire might have been contained more or put out. This area that's shaded in pink is Henry's estimate of the property that burned in 2025. And so that fire road could have helped stop that. This other yellow line, this is another fire road. So this now is a road in Buena Vista that comes down following that old fire road where the property lines had to be rejiggered and the lots redone. So there is a fire hydrant right there on the boundary of Naval Magazine. But below this road has been unmaintained and is impassable even to those four-wheel drive dualies that agriculture has. You need like a motorcycle or a Terex to get down that stuff or hike it. So had this road been maintained, so at least passable, fire personnel could have come in and try and put out the fires on this side, but since it's not traversable, they can't. There is one well-maintained fire road that's from the 70s that's still mowed and is serving its purpose. It's this one here, and so that one has been maintained, and it's got a bridge on it and everything. So if we could get some of these other roads, that would help a lot in controlling wildfires. Okay. The Ghost Cave is a beautiful natural formation. It's on Naval Magazine property. It is a popular enough destination. It has an entry on, if you look up Ghost Cave Guam, you'll find entries about it. Two rivers come together and meet, and part of the river goes through a cave. So it's really beautiful. People have noticed that sometimes there's a little bit of a sheen of oil on the top of the water, and Henry has been sort of blamed for that, for the Buena Vista development, because it is upstream. There's two rivers that empty that. One of the rivers goes up, is drained by the Buena Vista Estates. But we believe it is not Buena Vista Estates. We believe it is this old flatbed that has been out in the jungle since the 60s. This flatbed was actually used as the bridge across the river here on that old Navy fire road. It has since been washed and moved. So we suspect that axle grease or other differential fluid or oils and lubricants from this flatbed are what are now sitting in the river and sometimes making there be a little bit of oily sheen on top. Ghost Cave is down here. So it's downstream from that flatbed. The Mong Mong River goes up into Buena Vista area. Okay, so moving forward, the Navy has an in ramp, which is a 1,000-page document. There's a section on what they should be doing for wildfire management, and one of the things it mentions is could work with local authorities. And so it didn't seem there was no Navy personnel that came out, unlike 2019. It doesn't seem like Guam Fire Department and Navy are working together. I'm curious how far Guam Fire Department can go down to Navy property to fight fires. It would be great if the old fire roads could be rehabilitated. In 2019, when there were Navy fire personnel out, Henry asked them why they don't fix their old roads, and they said EPA. So it's kind of rumor, but there might be some truth to it. And we're wondering if the new executive order on common sense fire mitigation would make it easier and less onerous to repair these existing roads or maintain them. We also would hope the Navy would rebuild its perimeter roads and fire roads just for its own security. We know that there's like new missile sites or a tracking station being put out there, planned to be put out on Naval Magazine in sort of the area that does burn. So they may have more of an interest in protecting that area soon. But we also believe that some of these fires are being sent by deer poachers, because after the swordgrass burns, there's the new swordgrass shoots come up, and they're nice and soft, and the deer will eat them. Okay. The other thing to talk about with the EPA is the Clean Water Act primacy. So Hawaii and California have their own agencies that can administer the Clean Water Act and the SWPPs and NPDES permits. Uh, so, that means that there's people locally that you can talk to. Right now, Guam is handled federally for these permits, and it's really complex. Um, I, I'm a computer guy. I've looked through some of the things that are being asked for, and I can't really make heads or tails of it. And there's not really expertise on Guam. So if you go Google for SWPPP or NPDES consultants, Guam, you get 0 hits. You do the same query in Hawaii, it's a bigger place. You actually got some consultants that you can work with that can explain to you, exactly what it is you need to do A, B, and C, and D. And there are consultants that, in Hawaii that can file that paperwork for you and manage that process. And that expertise just doesn't exist on Guam. So if Guam had the primacy for it, that would be a forcing function for local Guam EPA to be able to work with people to get through this process. All right. Thank you for your time. Oh, I did want to mention one thing that I forgot. Go back to this. So the one I want to point out is that Henry's house is right there where the mouse cursor is. So he is a green thumb. He's a plant guy, and he lives here, so he cares. He's been here since the 70s, so he cares about this place, right? He doesn't want to see fires. He doesn't want to see the erosion that comes after all the fires sweep through, and then the rainy season comes and wash a bunch of stuff down. And he doesn't want to see any, landslides or anything. So he cares. He's not like he lives somewhere far away and doesn't care about the area. He's here. He's out on the property all the time. And if he's not doing things right, people around here will tell him and get on his case. All right. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.